Welcome to your class. So far we have learned how to create Android applications which consist only of one activity. However, advanced applications are rarely made of just one activity, and most often the applications have more than one activity. Today we will learn how to create multiple activities in a single application, and we will also learn how one activity talks with another activity, how one activity starts another activity, and how can activities pass data from one activity to another, both when starting an activity and also when an activity finishes, how can it return back the result. Let us see through a simple program and a small presentation. The way two activity talk to each other is through what we call intent. An intent is a message object that a component can use to communicate with the OS. If you remember from our discussion on components, Android applications usually have one of the four components: activity, background receivers, services, or component providers. Intent is the object that these components can pass to each other in order to communicate. Now, intents are sort of a multi-purpose communication tools. The intent class provides different constructors which we may use as we need them. So, how does intent work with activity? Well, as we will quickly see, suppose this is your activity which you originally have, and you want to start another activity. From your activity, you will use a method called start activity, and you will pass an intent into it. This will go to the Android OS activity manager, which will then pass this intent to another activity and invoke the new activity. Let us go into our program and see how it all works. I would like you to pay extra attention because today's topic is different than what we have been discussing earlier, and it is a very important topic. Let us first see our program that we had made. So this is our math quiz program that we earlier made. I have changed the math quiz program by adding an extra button here, as you can see. And what this extra button does is that it starts another activity. So let us first see an execution of our program. As you can see, the rest of the program is same. However, now I can press this extra button. It takes me to another activity. I can do some interaction on another activity. This is another activity. It is a hint activity. And I can come back to my original activity. So now our math quiz application that we have been working so far has two activities instead of one. We can further check it by checking the manifest file. So if you look at our manifest file, earlier we only had a quiz activity. Now you see that we also have another activity. So our application has two activities and we are going from one activity to another, coming back to the previous one, and we are also passing data. In today's lecture, we are going to see how to create a new activity, how to communicate with the activity, how to pass information to the activity, and how to get result back from the new activity. So let's start. We will start by adding another activity to this program, which we will call as cheat activity. So let us start with the quiz activity class. This was our original class. I want to add another activity. I will go to the beginning of this folder, right click, go to new. Inside new, I will see a menu item called activity. In that menu item, I will choose empty activity. Now, a dialog box has opened and it is asking me for some values. Let me give the activity name as cheat activity. I am not making it a launcher activity. My layout name is changed automatically and I press finish. After I have done it, Android Studio has added another activity to my program. Where do you think our project has changed? Try to think about it a little bit. Okay, so whenever we add an activity, we are adding a new Java class, which in this case is called cheat activity. There will be a layout XML file corresponding to this cheat activity. And if we check our manifest file, we will also see another entry in the activity list for this new activity. So overall, our project has changed visibly in three places: a new Java file, a new XML file, and a new entry in the manifest file. Now let's start adding some functionality. So what do we want to do with the cheat activity? Let us first see that what are we doing with the hint activity. So when I press the hint button, it takes me to a new screen, which is the another activity, hint activity. And when I press a button there, it gives me a hint to find out whether a number is a prime number or not. And then I can come back. Now with my cheat activity, I would actually like to add a button here, which is called cheat. So when I press cheat, I want to go to a new screen. I want to get an initial message that I am now cheating in my exam, but I still want to continue. I should get the direct answer that whether the given number is prime or not. And when I come back, my main activity should know that I have gone and known the answer using cheating and I am not answering here directly. So this is our aim and this is the program that we are going to develop today. So our first step in this is to add a cheat button in our quiz activity class. This was our quiz activity. This was our XML of quiz activity. I want to just add a button here. So let me just add another button here. I will, okay, yeah. Okay, so let us type a new button definition here. I'm adding a button, calling it a cheat button. I'm giving an ID to this button because I want to interact with this button later on. Layout, width and height is just enough to have the content. And I would like to display the text cheat button. I have not yet described this text. Let me go, and yes, we have got a cheat button and I am saying cheat here. Let us just quickly look at how our XML looks. So this looks all right. I would just like to see how would it look if I do a landscape, and it looks fine. I have a hint, I have a cheat, I have next. That is okay with me. So now we have got our cheat button. Let us first quickly check whether it is working or not. Let me go to my quiz activity again. In order to make use of our button, we will have to describe a variable called cheat button. I am describing it here. Private button and cheat button. Then we will have to go and we will have to add a cheat button on click listener. So we have done that previously. So let's just do it again. mcheat button equal to button find view by id r dot id dot cheat button. Now I want to add a listener to it. mcheat button dot set on click listener new view dot on click listener. I would like to override public void on click method. I would just add a log message here, log.d tag cheat button pressed. Now let me run our application again and see if we get the log message. Okay, let me first clear the logcat. When I press the cheat button, I'm getting my log message. So everything is working fine. Now what I want to do is I want to start my cheat activity when I press the cheat button. So if you want to start one activity from another, you will have to first create an intent object and then you will have to call a method called start activity, which will take that intent object as one of the parameter, and then your new activity will get started. Let us see. I do very simply intent I equal to new intent. I'm creating an intent. My intent function takes two parameters. One is a context parameter. In this case, my context is my present context, which is the quiz activity, and the class of the new activity that I want to invoke. So as you see, new intent has two parameters. I've given both of them here. Only thing that I now need to do is call start activity. That's it. Now let us go to our cheat activity and we should see if our cheat activity starts or not when we press the cheat button. In order to check that, I would like to add some log messages. So first let us create a string tag. And then I'll just do a log tag inside on create. You can see that the log has been turned into a red. It means I need to import correct libraries. In Android Studio, I will press Alt Enter and the Android will import it automatically. Now let's run our program again and check whether our activity gets launched or not. This is our original application. Let me clear the logcat window. I press cheat, and if you see the initial three line, in quiz activity it says cheat button pressed. Then in quiz activity it says inside on pause, which means that my quiz activity is now in a paused state. And then it says cheat activity inside on create. My cheat activity has been started. Later on, my quiz activity will move from the paused to the stopped state because it becomes completely invisible. But my cheat activity has now been started. And as you see that my screen is now changed to my cheat activity. Let me press back button here. And I have come back to my quiz activity which went from start and resume. So we started one activity from another and came back to previous activity. Now in order to understand the application life cycle better or the activity life cycle, let us also override other methods that we did last time and put appropriate log messages to see how activities behave when the program moves from one activity to another. So let us extend the methods that we did earlier for quiz activity. Let me do at override public public void on stop super dot on stop. I will just add a log message here. Side stop. Public void on resume super dot on resume log dot t tag inside on resume. At override public void destroy super on destroy log.t tag inside on destroy at override public void on pause and on stop on pause super dot on pause log.t tag inside on pause. Public void on stop super on stop log.d tag inside on stop. Why it is giving error? It says it is already defined. Okay, so I have already defined it. So that is fine. Now let us run our program again, and this time try to follow the path of the activity lifecycle for both of our activities. So we start, go, hopefully. Okay, so it is launched very quickly. Let's clear the log cat. Just set it for activity as a filter. Press the cheat button. The moment I press cheat button, I can see that from quiz activity went into the pause mode, cheat activity started, cheat activity is now in resumed mode, and my quiz activity is now in stopped mode. What happens when I press the back? When I press the back button, my cheat activity goes from pause, stop to destroy, and my quiz activity from stop goes to start and resume. Let's do it again. Cheat button pressed, quiz activity paused and stopped, cheat activity created and resumed, back button, cheat activity paused and destroyed, paused, stopped and destroyed, while quiz activity started and resumed again. So this is about the activity life cycle when you go from one activity to another. Now let us do some more work. So far we have seen how to go from one activity to another and come back. Now we will see how to pass data from one activity to another, and then we will see how to get result back from one activity to another. So when we want to pass a data into another activity, we use a slightly different technique. Number one, that we will try to create our intent object such that we can pass the data, and then we will start our activity. So we will stop our original intent object. Now let's go to the cheat activity and create a method, a static method, which will help us create a new intent object with data that we want to pass to our new activity. We will call this method as new intent method. We will start with public, it has to be static, it must return an intent object, and let's say its name is new intent. As a parameter, it should take the context that we were trying to pass earlier. So let me pass the context here, which is context, and then I have a choice to pass the value that I want to pass from my activity to the child activity. Let us say that we want to pass currently a number. This number could be the number of our index of the array that is displaying the questions. So what I will do is I will type as int I. It's giving me two warnings. Because I have not imported correct libraries, I will import both. Now it is fine. Inside it, I will have to create an intent object and return. So let's do that. Let us create an intent object I, which is equal to new intent context comma cheat activity dot class return I. Oh, we are defining an integer, so I will just change it to new intent. Now, if we want to pass some value to another activity, we use what we call as intent extras. Let us just see how to use intent extras. What I will do is I will do intent dot. If you can see, there is a method called put extra. Let me call a put extra method, and put extra method allows me to put a key value pair. I want to choose the key value pair where the value is of type int. Let me use that. For that, number one, we will have to also define our key. So I will just go and define our key, which is, let us call cheat key, equal to the value cheat underscore index. I would also name it as cheat index. I will pass it cheat underscore index comma I. Now, when this new intent object is created, it will also have this value I. I want to pass this value I, or this integer value, from the parent activity. So let's go back to our parent activity class, which was our quiz activity class, and instead of calling the earlier new intent method, I will now call another method, which is intent I equal to cheat activity dot new intent. I'll pass this quiz activity dot this comma, and now I can pass the integer value. Because I want to cheat on my exam, I would like to pass it the integer value of the index of the array that is displaying the question. So for me, this value is stored in the current index. Here I will start, let us say, activity. Okay. Now we have passed this value. We have to still figure out how to make use of this value. So in order to make use of this value, what I do is get intent method. Get intent method returns me the intent object that was passed when this activity was invoked. and corresponding to the put extra method I get methods which are called get extra. So I will be using a method called get int extra. Get int extra method will take the key by which the data was stored and will take a default value. Let me take the key as the key which I created earlier, and let me set the default value equal to -999, and let me store it into another int. I will do nothing much, but I will use another log message, and I will say tag, and I will just say received value plus I. Now let's try to run our application again and see how it works. So we start. Oh, so we are getting an error. Let us check what the error is. Wow, okay. So I have described it at final, but I have not described it as static. I must describe it as static so that I can use it in a static function. Let us hope that now we will not get this error. In fact, this string should also be described as static. Let's run our program again. And as you see, this time our program is launched. I will clear the log. Everything is ready. We want to now press the cheat button, and we want to see that whether we are receiving the value or not. Press the cheat button. It says received value equal to 0 because we know that we start with our index 0. Let's go to some other question. I have now come to third question. Now let me press cheat button, and as you see, now I am receiving the value 2. So I have been successfully able to pass the value of my current index from my parent activity to my child activity. Now we will move to the second stage where we will pass something back from the child activity to the parent activity. For that, we will have to make some changes in our cheat activity class. Our cheat activity class will actually have to use another intent object, put some value into that intent object, and then that intent object will be used to pass the values to the parent activity class. Okay, so number one, let us assume that for the time being we just want to return to the parent activity that whether a user pressed the cheat button or not. What is the way to check it? We would like to check it by using this I value. So let me just say that if I is greater than equal to 0, then set a boolean variable. I will define a boolean here. I wait boolean is cheated equal to false, but if I is 0, then I will say is cheated equal to true. and after that I will call a local method. Let me call my local method set answer result, and my local method does nothing but it will create a answer result. It will create an answer result which can then be used to send data back to the parent activity. This takes of type boolean b. Now I need to create an intent object. Again I'm creating intent, new intent. But the next step is similar to above, where we had put an extra value here, we will put an extra value here. I dot put extra. Again this will require a key value pair and we will have to create a key. So let us go above and create a key private static final string is cheated equal to is cheated. I'll come back. I'll say is cheated, and I am using a boolean b. That is it. Now I have put my value that I want to pass the parent activity into an intent object. All I need now is to call a method called set result. So set result method takes two parameters. Number one, it takes a integer code. There are three integer code defined. One is a result OK, one is a result cancelled, another is a result first user. I will explain them later. For the time being, we will take the result OK. And the second parameter is actually an intent object. So that's our I. Now, whatever value we wanted to return, we have put it and we have called set result. In order to receive data from set result, actually our quiz activity should have started activity in such a manner that it can receive the data. So we will not be using this method anymore, but we will be using another method which is called start activity for result, and I will call it I, which is my intent, and then I need to provide a request code. The request code is nothing but just a unique integer so that I know that which of my activity is returning me the result. So this again has to be a constant integer. Let me first define it. I will go on top and I will define a private static final int request code from my cheat activity, and I will give it a value 1. Let me come back. I will give this request code cheat here. Ideally now I should be able to receive the value. So what do we do when we receive this value? Well, we can do few things. Well, first thing we have to do is to handle what we want to do with the received value. we are receiving a boolean value. So let us first find a way to store that boolean value. I will define another private boolean variable which is m cheated. I'll come, and now the second step that I need to do is to override a method called onActivityResult. OnActivityResult takes three parameters. One is a request code, another is a result code, and another is an intent data. The result code corresponds to the results that you are returning in the child activity. For example, we returned the result as result OK. The request code corresponds to the request code that you have defined in the parent activity. We have defined two request codes. For our cheat class, this is our request code. And then the intent data is the data that you will receive, from which you will retrieve the values. So I have already overwritten it. Let me now add code which will get invoked when we receive data from our cheat activity. Again, if data is equal to null, return, otherwise set the boolean equal to whatever value we want to receive from the data. So let us see how to handle this part. Let's now go back to our cheat activity class. So let's go back to our cheat activity class and add another static method. Boolean. Let's say was cheat shown. It will take an intent I, and just like we had used the put extra, we will use the return extra. Get boolean extra. Our boolean was is cheated, and let's say the default value is false. Now if you try to understand the flow, when our activity gets started, it receives an intent, takes the data out, and it gets started. When it wants to return the data, it again uses an intent, puts the data into it, and returns it. We want to access this data. We try to get the same value out which we put. So here we are putting a boolean and we are taking a boolean out. Now let's quickly go back to our previous one. Cheat activity dot was cheat shown and data. Hopefully now our program will work fine. And one thing that we can do is to maybe add another log button which will show us the value of m cheated. So let us add a message to the on resume log.d tag Did user cheat? And I will say I'm cheated. Now let's start our application, and hopefully we should be able to see data going from parent activity to child activity and then from child activity to parent activity. As you can see, initially did user cheat is resulting into a false. We can do everything is fine. Let's press the hint button, come back. Still our user cheat is false because he got the hint but he did not cheat. Now let us see. Let's press the cheat button, go to the cheat. We can see the value received is 1, which was equivalent to the current index that we had seen earlier as well. Now we will try to go back and see whether we get data back from the cheat activity to the parent activity. And as you can see, that it is still showing false. Let us try to solve this error. I will put a log message here, d tag inside activity result. Okay, so let's try to fix the error, and this is also a good test on how do we find out about the errors, something which we learned in our last class. So as you can see that currently, even though we are cheating, it is returning a false value. Now let me try to see that why it is doing that. So last time we learned about debugging. Let us use some of those skills. First thing that I am going to do is to put a breakpoint, and I am putting a breakpoint at this point because I want to know that whether this method is being called or not. And if this method is being called, then why our method is not being called? Because we did not also get this log message. So let's run our program, but this time we will run it in the debug mode. So we press the debug mode, we start, we press the cheat button, come back. When we come back, as you see, the execution has stopped. So on activity result is called, which is right. However, on activity method is saying that the result code is 0. Why? While we were expecting a -1. And because we are expecting a -1, it will directly go to return and not go into the any of the if. And that's it. And that's why our messages are not getting printed. Okay, so we have found out the error. Let us see what happens when we press hint, which was working. So when we press hint, come back again, our code is stopped. Okay, so we had to press also the show hint button. So let's start again. This time we will complete the hint. We will go to the hint. We see the hint, we come back, and as you see that our result code is what is being expected. If I step over, it goes into the request code hint, and because our request code is 0, it will go further and it will set the embassied hint. So as you can see that when we are pressing cheat, our result code is different. It comes out as 0 while it should be -1. So essentially our result code is not being set correctly in our cheat activity class. So we have identified it using a simple single breakpoint. Now let's go to cheat activity and try to see why it is not happening. So in cheat activity we came to onCreate, we received this value and we are setting our result into this function, but we never called this function. If we never call this function, then it will not work, as you already know. So let me call set answer true with is cheated, and let me put it after the if. Now I hope that I have corrected my error and I will directly run my program. If things do not work, then I will go back to debugging again. Like we learned in the last class, debugging is an integral step for coding. So yes, we are back. We can see the log messages. I will clear out all the messages. So we start, we press next. So ideally we should receive a value 1. Press cheat, we received the value 1. We come back and yes, this time we got the right message. So as you saw, number 1, how we created another activity in our application. Number 2, how we passed the data from the parent activity to the child activity. Number 3, how did we pass the data from the child activity to the parent activity. And in between, I also showed you briefly how to debug your program when you are getting an error. Now in the next video, we will actually write more code and fix our math quiz program so that instead of just displaying a simple message, we actually calculate and come to know about the right answer when we cheat. And we will also change our toast in the parent activity to reflect that the user has cheated. Thank you.